what I've gleaned from what everybody has said and what I have heard, and what even reading through some of the confusion and misinformation that's been on Facebook by, various
Well,
points.
there it goes.
There are a few things that stand out in the process. Some of it is, in a way, we still don't have enough information to make a complete decision. And so that's one point that I'd like to come back to later. I would like to talk, give my thoughts on the survey a little bit. And though there are some challenges with the design of the survey, there's still information in it. And I think Mr. Hess, as a professor in this, you would maybe even have given something like this as an assignment and say, now find the answers in it. Because there are answers in it that may be things that we go, one of them that shows up is the reason that we have two groups of people here that have expressed interest or comment on two different properties is because when you start looking at percentages, not just top numbers, most of these fall very close to within a margin of error of being statistically tied when you look at a lot of it. There are a few of them that are a little different than that. Building you own, 63%. Now, when you combine the other two parts that are I don't care and no, that's 34%. So a building we own is a high priority. That one shows up. In question number 2, Cyclone Park as a percentage, even though it's the top voter, or the top item, it got 44% of the vote, of the choices, or of the decisions. That it doesn't matter, and Dawson Tire was 53%. So once again, you're in that almost flip a coin kind of scenario. Question number 3 is even more like that. It's dead heat 50-50 when it says move in and share with the township, 232 is yes, and the other two combined as a no, and it doesn't matter, is 49-point-something%. The other little bit is the no answers. So it's a dead heat. Is it important to have motorized access? This one's interesting. Very important came out on top, but it was only 39% of the answers. The not important or doesn't matter was 60% of the answers. So access in the survey says it doesn't matter. Centrally located in the center of the village. Very important, 52%. The other two, not important or it doesn't matter, is 46%. Once again, you're within that margin of error on, as Mr. Hess said, a very small sampling. Actually, I will say from what I've seen doing other surveys and things within government here, this is actually a decent result, or a decent turnout. So I wouldn't say that it's that far out of line. It's mostly the people who felt they had an opinion they wanted to express. The other, how many thousand people that didn't respond, almost fall in that, it doesn't matter. I wanna know is where I'm gonna go pay my water bill and taxes. And so, and how much is it gonna cost us in the end? There's been really good questions that are raised about multiple things, multiple parts. Actually on both properties, you know? When it comes down to it at the end of the day, we will go to one of them. And is it going to completely matter in the end? No. Wherever we end up, whatever we choose to do, will be the choice we live with and learn to work with it. If we go to Grange Hall and work out stuff with the township, we will spend several years figuring it all out and working on it. If we go to Cyclone, we will spend several years figuring out what we do with what space we created and what space we didn't. Either one has pros, cons, time frames. There are so many similarities and yet differences within both of them. We're not gonna lose as a village no matter which choice we make. Could something be better than the other one? Hindsight will be 20/20. We are left with making a recommendation here. I'd like to maybe make a motion, and then from that, we can have discussion, and then we can make a vote, if you're comfortable with doing that. Okay? What I would like to make for a motion is that we recommend to the village council to enlist the building and grounds committee and the village manager to meet with the township and work out what an agreement would look like to bring back for discussion to the council or for recommendation to the council. If that ends up going no place, we still have another option. But I think we have too many questions to just make a choice. I would like to see an actual document that says, this is what it would look like. We can always go, I don't think it's gonna work. Now, some things I see with that are, we've had comment about some of the funds. You know, we have a park that is desperate for some funds to be spent on it, as all of our parks are. Sure.
You made your motion.
Okay.
We have to vote on
Yep.
it and then go
Well,
into
you
discussion.
make a second, and then, do I have a second for discussion? So we're gonna go into discussion.
And your motion is only to have the questions answered and a
To,
possible lease
right, work out,
proposed.
right, to recommend that they actually sit down with the township and see what could be put on paper.
I actually have a point of order.
Okay?
What I'm wondering, this is a question, is it within the authority of the committee to direct staff in that way, or is that something that would more properly be decided by council? You see what I'm saying?
Who, would make that up, you
Yeah,
mean?
do we, the committee, have the authority to
All we
give
are,
that
all we are
direction to
doing is
staff?
making a recommendation.
Okay.
So my thought would be, or my interpretation of that would be, all we are doing is recommending to council what a plan might look like. When that goes to council, council can always tweak that, adjust that, vote no on that.
And so you're expecting, another committee meeting prior to our making a recommendation
No,
to council?
no, that would be our recommendation to council.
Oh.
Because we cannot recommend another committee to act. That would be our recommendation to council, is sit down with Building and Grounds Committee and the village manager with the township and have an actual discussion about what that would look like. Bring
Feasibly,
back a possible document.
if we were to vote on this, there would have to be another meeting prior to presentation to council.
Right.
Because we need to, we can't do it right now if you're wanting to get further information. We need that information before we can make a decision. So there has to be another decision where we come together, or rather another meeting where we come together.
That becomes our recommendation to council.
But it seems to me that council,
Okay,
council
we're still having discussion.
that's true, yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
but,
Well,
and I would have to vote no.
But we're not, we need a second in order to have discussion.
there's no support, it's dead on the table.
Right.
Well,
It's a hard decision to make.
at
It
the
really
risk
is.
of getting, putting the cart ahead of the horse and getting into more discussion, it seems to me that, the council voted, good enough, to have this committee study the issue in order to make a recommendation to the whole council, one way or the other.
Sure.
So that's sort of another point of order would be,
Well, the building,
Would that
the locations that we
fall-
chose, or that
yeah.
were even brought to us, have changed from what came to us.
right. But would it be outside of the parameters of what the council asked of us to do anything but
Come
say,
back with a recommendation. We're coming
Yeah,
back
one
with
way
a
or the other.
recommendation.
But if there are additional factors of information that are needed for us to make a recommendation to council, I mean, to weigh the odds and look at everything, if we don't know, okay, yes, there's a lease that's been crossed off, but we don't know how much it is. We don't know if it's $1 a month, if it's $1 a year, whatever. There is information that needs to be given to us that hasn't been to make an informed decision. But I'm saying, if you're wanting to just go ahead with this, then I would go against it.
seems like punting to me, you know? Not supposed to find a point on it, but it seems to me rather like saying, we were, as a committee, were either not able or not willing to make the kind of recommendation on this topic that council was looking for. Therefore, you know, we'll just give the question to council.
Well, if it comes back with a very amicable, contract, then that's worked. If that doesn't become amicable, then we know that the other alternative is there.
There's a lot of what ifs.
Yep.
I mean, I certainly see what you're saying about, what both of you are saying, because I absolutely agree about, you know, wanting and needing more concrete information in order to make this decision. I'm just wondering about the how, because it seems to me that, you know, that's the course, we want to take, then, you know, we, the committee, can review that information when it comes in,
Then
and then
maybe
make our.
make that happen, but I think that decision has to come from council. To do that, because we're not the contract group, really.
But we have to have all of our information before we can make an intelligent decision on
Right,
what to do.
and so adding that in to the idea is we send a recommendation or a request to council to have that, that type of meeting, that contract discussion set up, and then we can come back and decide, bring it back to us. If you are comfortable with saying that we could be the committee that sits down with the township and works that, then we could do that too. Make that recommendation that this committee with the village manager, sits and works out what a contract would look like.
Or on the flip side of it, we decide amongst the three of us what our vote would be for each location, one way or another, and then, if it goes to that point of Grange Hall, then we can negotiate that, because if that's what's already been voted on, then you can negotiate all you want, as far as $1 a month or $1 a year, whatever, but
Right, because it seems to me that,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
Our responsibility is to present to council one way or another with the building.
yeah, to make a recommendation about the site. Now, doing that does not preclude, also, seeking, to have a committee that could sit down with the township, and negotiate. And even if we wanted that to be, on the agenda for the next council meeting, I know a guy who can get that on the agenda. Right, we can still make a recommendation as to the site based on the information that we have. But at the same time, council can authorize, negotiations, to open up. And we'll make a more, the council will make a more informed decision about location based on that. You following?
And council may not even, we may give a recommendation, council may not even go with that recommendation.
True.
You know, I mean, we can't speak for
The
5
other
other
four.
people, or 4 other people rather, so. your motion?
No need if there's no support.
There's no support, so. So you want me to just make the other motion then, and I'll make the motion that, we, recommend the Grange Hall site and, enter into, negotiations with the township.
That was what your first motion was.
Oh, it was a
Just
little different.
reworded it a little bit.
Well, I turned it into a specific, recommend this site. I don't think so either. I keep trying.
But I make the motion that we recommend Cyclone Park as a new location for the village office.
And I will second that.
Discussion?
I'm concerned because of the fact, we had a 25-year lease here, and after 8 years, we spent money moving offices in here, thinking that we were going to be all set. And that was a tremendous amount of work, not just the moving, but it was a tremendous amount of money too, that we spent upgrading the offices and what have you, to have them tell us that, well, you have a year to be out. You know, and I'm not saying that the township would do that, but, you know, I've heard people say, well, you're not gonna be here in 50 years. You're not gonna be here in 100 years. There's still gonna be someone here in this position.
Right.
That's, you have to look towards the future for those people as well. And if we own a building, yes, there's an initial investment in it, there isn't any type of business that you go forward with, but it's ours. Nobody can kick us out, nobody can evict us. It's ours to do with and have for as long as the building stands. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I mean, just as you say, you know, we are on year 8 of our 25-year lease with Holly Area Schools for the space that the village offices are occupying now. And that lease is being broken, and that is a 100% legal thing to do. What I would fear would be a situation where we have a lease agreement of whatever kind, you know, whether it's for, you know, $1 a year or $1 for the next 99 years, you know. I'm not concerned about the money so much as I'm concerned about ownership. You know, it could very well be that we enter into an agreement with the township. You know, we pay our share of the renovation of the former Dawson Tire building, and then, you know, whether it's a year after that's done or 10 years after that's done, you know, that agreement is broken, and we have to go through this whole process again, you know, and spend that money again. It's entirely possible. Whereas, you know, when we have property that we own in perpetuity, there's no question about something like that ever happening.
I look at a couple of things with, first of all, the building that's there on Cyclone is not big enough, does require an addition that would have to be done at some point, which is a significant expense again. I look at what our, our budget, what we have, you know, I remember just back a couple of months ago, we had Plant Moran in and spoke with us about the concern about our, fund balance has not been heading in a positive direction, it's been heading in a negative direction. More than half of the money that is considered for this project is our fund balance. I know as a councilman, I would not vote to spend our fund balance down to nothing to have a building, when we have other opportunities to do something else. As I stated before as well, to utilize funds that are not sitting in our account or projected for us, that gives us those funds then to actually do something significant with not only that park, but other parks as well. If you look at, you know, we have $130-some thousand we've had sitting there. What do you think you could do to Cyclone Park with $130,000? Or the $500,000 that we're projecting to spend over the next 2 to 3 years to fix a building in Cyclone Park? You could do a lot to all of the parks that way.
I mean, to be clear, the, you know, what is being offered at the Grange Hall location, the former Dawson Tire Building, the renovation, is not free to the village.
In essence, it's a loan. In essence, it's a loan.
Which will have to be paid.
Right,
Yeah.
which, you know, we're paying $1,100 or something here, you know. You keep that in your budget, move it over there.
That
You pay
money's
that
gonna
off there.
replenish eventually too.
What will replenish?
The fund balance will replenish.
The fund balance that has been dropping every year?
It will still replenish. When taxes and everything else come in, it still replenishes.
It does.
Not if we spend it.
We agree to
It
disagree.
it won't be funds that are sitting there. It will be funds that are sitting in a building.
That we don't, that we can never be evicted from. That we can never have to be evicted and pay more money over here to have things redone.
You know, I think that, you know what, we have a park that has that same kind of agreement already. Crapo Park is that way. Is that same kind of agreement?
The Crapo Park doesn't house the
100
village
years
offices.
ago, people were willing to take that kind of step on that property to do that.
You're talking apples and oranges. We're looking at a location for a building with Cyclone Park attached to it. Crapo Park does not house the village offices. Nor can it be built on there.
It
You're talking
could.
apples and oranges.
It could be built on there.
Give me credit.
A lot more, no doubt, a lot more expensively.
At a lot higher cost.
Right, right.
It is still, you know, that could still have been done.
But it's still apples
know?
and oranges.
It's all fruit.
You failed to mention your 25-year lease with the schools had a 90-day clause, giving them the right to break that contract. We've not suggested that with ours at all.
Which, is sitting there too.
And I don't. Seems to me that any proposal from the township that we consider would have to come with respect, not simply from the from the supervisor's office, but from the board.
Yeah, which would need to be an actual document that is mutually agreed on between the two parties.
Would you give me a second?
Which in essence was the motion, was to
Yeah.
make that happen.
Yeah, and I,
We're aware of that.
Yeah.
I understand.
I know you are.
Well, we have a motion and a support,
Me too.
we've had
And
discussion, so do we move forward to roll call?
We can. Ms. Bigger, roll call, please.
Kinnaman,
No.
Musgrave,
Yes.
Delaney,
Yes.
Motion carries. 2-1. I think that's all we were needing to do tonight. And we thank everyone for coming out. I thank everyone for your discussion and opinions. And we wish you all a very good evening. Adjourned at 7:55.
Don't steal my pen. I already stole it. I already stole it. I'll go pen.
Well, it's not contingent on us trash. That's what.
Yeah, it'll be,
They didn't say open it. Oh my gosh. Let's begin. And when this car.
whatever is whatever.
You know that that's what you're gonna
You wanna
run.
stop it?
You know it.
And he's done a lot of good work, but,